Welcome to Inside Economics. I'm Mark Zandi, the chief economist of Moody's Analytics, and this is another special podcast. We're recording this on December 15th, a Wednesday, but this will air a week from now. I believe a week from now, or maybe I'm not sure when, but next week, Christmas week. So we're not going to do the statistics like we typically do. Just because they'll be a little bit out of date by the time this airs. But we are going to just dive right into our big topic, and it's the dollar, the U.S. dollar, and I should say currency more broadly. And we have a guest. I'm going to introduce the guest in just a minute to help us kind of navigate through all of this. But before I do, let me introduce my co-hosts, Sdr Is. Cris is the deputy chief economist, and Ryan Sweet. Ryan is the director of real-time economics. Although you had a tough morning, didn't you, Ryan? I said I wasn't going to talk about statistics, but we got retail sales today. It was a little bit on the soft side, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
right?
It
came in below what I thought it was, but I was lower than the consensus.
Yes,
so.
you were. Yes, you were indeed. Why was it low?
The seasonal factors were pretty aggressive. So if you look at NSA, non-seasonally adjusted, the number wasn't that bad. So, and if you look at all the components, there's some weird volatility going on. Non-store was flat in November. That seems a little odd. So
yeah,
I'm not too concerned.
I think you got to put it into context, right? I mean, October was boom, right?
Yeah, it was very strong.
Got revised up, and I think September was, as I recall, that was strong too, wasn't it? That was over 1%.
Was.
So year over year growth in retail sales is, I don't know, what, 18, 19%, something like that?
Yep.
I mean, and of course there's inflation in there, but even abstracting from the inflation.
Yeah, even if you adjust for inflation, it's still really strong. Fourth quarter consumer spending will be strong.
It will be strong. And Christmas sales, I wrote something for the New York Times, and I said in that this could be the best Christmas in terms of sales growth in history. Do you think that was hyperbole, or do you think we got a shot at that?
Yeah, we got a shot at it.
Got a shot at it. Yeah, very good. Hey, and I do want to introduce our guest, Joe Kennedy. Joe, good to see you. Joe is you're back, Joe. Thank you for coming back.
I think I'm the first one you've had back.
Indeed, yeah.
I was at first I was really pleased. I go to my ego, and then I thought it might be a sign that you're having trouble getting people.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Ouch! That hurts.
Yeah, every silver lining has a dark cloud somewhere. So I wasn't sure, which way to go.
Well, you diagnosed that wrong, Joe. We had you back.
Yeah.
You were great.
Well, thank you.
We were talking about markets, competition, antitrust. Pretty complex issue.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We ran out of time. Right.
We did run out of time. Yeah. And so just to remind everyone, Joe and I got to know each other when Joe was the chief economist of the Commerce Department back in the day under President Bush. So got to know each other then. And since then, you've been very busy. You wrote a book, Ending Poverty. And you want to tell us a little bit about that book? I don't think we dove into that in the first podcast.
Yeah, sure.
You got a copy?
Okay, I do. I've got like 100.
It's like my book. Yeah.
So, I've had these ideas for a long time about how to restructure government. And so this book, half of it spells out a system for a guaranteed income, provided the recipient does certain things like work, not commit crimes, get educated. And then the rest, when I looked at the economy, it seemed like most sectors were doing okay, but there are a couple of big sectors that are just sort of stuck. And I devoted a chapter to each to talk about, sort of systematic reform that would, over time, bring down prices and increase quality. And the main sectors were healthcare, education. I think I had housing in there. Because I think why can't the cost of housing go down over time and quality go up? I mean, there's a limited amount of land, but you can go up, and we have so many ridiculous barriers to, that add extra cost to building a house, that if we got rid of a lot of them, we could see deflation for at least a while. We could see prices fall. And the same with education, same, I believe, with healthcare. And if you did all that, everybody's standard of living would go up quite a bit.
Very cool. Did you notice that corporate profits, this is Q3 data, 2021 Q3 data, corporate profits as a share of national income is at a record high. And when I say record, we have data back to just after World War II, 14.6%. Is that surprising to you?
Yeah.
That was surprising to me when I saw it. Yeah.
You read all these articles about wages finally going up, and I would have guessed, that.
Right. So they're raising businesses are able to raise their prices to compensate for the higher labor costs. But that's interesting. Well, yeah, that sounds like a great read, and hopefully it gets on the bestseller list when you take another stab at it, and I think you need to get it out there in other languages. That would also that's what I tried to do. Didn't help me, but tried. And now, Joe, you're at MITRE. Tell us a little bit about MITRE.
Yeah, so my MITRE runs 6 what are called federally funded research and development centers, and in each one it partners with part of government to accomplish certain missions. It does a lot of very technical work in cryptography, in working with statistical agencies to protect their data, in helping these agencies make major IT purchases. And its main goal is to work on really hard problems that the government and society is facing, to bring together the right people, and then to deliver a product that actually addresses the problem and results in a solution that makes everybody better off. And it really tends to focus on key big issues that involve systems of systems, or that involve a whole of government approach to the problem. And one of the things it's doing that attracted me was it's spending a lot of resources on an internal project to better understand this great power competition that we seem to be starting to go through with the China and, to a lesser extent, Iran, Russia, and some other countries. And so we're looking at key variables in there, including the role of China's BRI.
One Belt, One Road.
One Belt, One Road. The scope of illegal fishing in one of these areas is the role of the dollar, and how it's been changing in response both to technology, but also to just normal economic factors like the rise of China.
Yeah, it sounds like a great place to work. A lot of very interesting topics. Not as good as these analytics, but I'm just sounds like
I couldn't aspire to that, but
Close second.
Close second.
Yeah, I have to displace Cris, and I never do that.
Oh, I thought you were done for my job. What are you talking about? Yeah, but we'll come back to the dollar. Before we do that, though, the three of us were having an email exchange last night. I'm curious how you'd weigh in on this question. It's a very important question.
Very, very important.
Obviously, this is one that Ryan posed. It's what's the best Christmas movie? And Ryan says this is like a slam dunk. There's an
only
obvious
one
choice for
What's that one with that guy?
That works.
That one? Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's the best.
It's the one
Jimmy
where
Stewart?
he died.
You mean
Jimmy Stewart? Yeah.
Yeah, my wonderful, wonderful.
It's a
Life.
Wonderful Life.
That's
Wonderful Life.
That's it.
That's the prototypical
Yeah, I like that one a
Christmas
lot.
movie. Absolutely. I agree with you, Joe.
Do you, Cris?
Yeah.
Is that your number one movie?
That's
movie?
number one Christmas movie
Yeah.
by far. Come on.
No.
That's not what Ryan had in mind. So
He's
Ryan actually is a diehard fan. It can't be Die Hard, is it?
No, I was joking about that because
Oh,
everyone
you're
says
joking
it's Die Hard
about Die
a
Hard.
Christmas
Is
movie.
that a Christmas movie?
Yeah, yeah.
It's set in Christmas. Yeah. You
Yeah.
remember?
So,
Yeah.
Mark, what's yours?
Well,
Well, there was this, I don't know the name of it, but there was this one movie about this small kid, and it was like in a third person voice. And I think it was the dad was
A Christmas
I know that.
Story.
a
Christmas
Story.
Story.
Christmas Story.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
That's
really
hilarious.
funny. It reminded me
Yeah.
of see, I'm older than you guys, and that movie kind of was my childhood to some degree. You know,
Mhm.
Not that my dad was that guy's dad. That was, I thought that was pretty funny. Christmas Story. Yeah, I like that one. But that's not what you had in mind either, is it, Ryan?
So you're close.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Joe and Chris are way off. Without a doubt, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is the best
Oh, that is good.
Christmas movie of all time.
That is good. That's the Chevy Chase, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where they have the lights
Yeah.
on the.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
It,
Yeah,
That is hilarious. Yeah, that is.
That
good.
is
it's
funny.
pretty good.
how about from an economics point of view, Trading Places? Right, that's the.
Ooh, that's a close
That's a
second.
good one.
That's a great movie.
Or
Eddie
are we just
Murphy?
now picking movies
Eddie
that we
Murphy,
like,
yeah.
or was that? A
No, that's
Christmas
Christmas. Well, again, debatable. It is to the same degree that Die Hard is a Christmas
Yeah,
movie. It
got
does
it.
take place over Christmas.
movie? That's set in Philadelphia.
It is.
Yeah, that was
That's
a good
right.
movie. That was
Oh,
a good
yeah.
movie.
Pork
Orange
bellies.
Juice Futures.
Oh,
Yep.
and what's that one with the other guy?
There you go.
the
That's
new-
got to be right.
The new one, it's it's a takeoff of A Christmas Story, but it's got
Oh,
the next Saturday night SCTV guy in
I
it.
don't know that one.
Bill Murray. It's got Bill Murray in it.
Is it a new movie?
Yeah, it is.
Groundhog Day related. Is that-
Yeah, no, it's about
Scrooged.
yeah, that's it.
I haven't seen
Scrooge. That's a
Scrooge.
great
Good?
one.
Oh,
Oh,
Mark, you
okay.
got to see if you love
It's-
Groundhog
it's-
Day.
Love Bill
Yeah.
Murray. I love
Yeah.
Bill Murray. Yeah. Okay, I got to watch that. Good. Well, we got something out of this podcast.
There you go.
Christmas Eve kind of feel to it, right? I mean, you had to do it.
It's,
Right.
it's the week leading up to Christmas. This is
We're
perfect.
leading up to Christmas. Yeah. All right. Well, let's chat dollar and currency and crypto and all that kind of good stuff. So I know we're not going to play the game, but I'm going to play the game. I got a number for you. This is a good segue into the topic at hand. Are ready? 60%.
60%. I know that. I'm going to guess
Think currency.
it's dollars. The share of reserve currencies that's filled by dollars.
Got it. Perfect.
Wow.
That's
See?
Where's that
Joe
cowbell?
knows his numbers.
No, it's right
Cowbell.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. There you go.
Thank you.
Pathetic, actually. A pathetic
Napping
cowbell.
children, Mark. Napping.
Sorry.
children.
Right. You're taking care of
Yeah.
that.
Only
was
so
very good,
only
Joe.
so much we can go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
60. What? Okay. What's second largest currency in the basket? If you look at reserve currencies,
Euros.
what's euros? Okay,
But yeah,
20%.
except then
And then what's next after that?
I guess it's either SDRs or the pound.
Oh,
I'd say pound.
I didn't even see the SDRs. I don't know if I don't know if SDRs were included in this table I was looking at. I'm not sure. Actually, interestingly enough, it's the yen. It's up like 6-7%.
Oh, yeah.
The
Oh.
reserve basket, and the pound is like 4 or 5%. Then you've got Chinese currency, renminbi, and what else is in there? A few smaller currencies.
Yeah.
Hey Joe, what does it mean to be a reserve currency? What does that mean?
Well, so central banks exist at least partly, maybe mainly to handle, I guess mainly to handle routine functions, but a big part of what they do is they serve as bedrocks when the economy goes south for a while. And so one of the things you need to, if you're going to be the bedrock, is you need assets that you can sell when the time comes so that you can inject liquidity into the market. And so you want an asset that's going to hold its value, maybe even is going to appreciate when the economy goes down or you're about to enter a recession. And the dollar fulfills that role because one, the dollar markets are so big and so liquid that you can always sell your dollar assets and get cash. And they're also regarded as very safe in that people don't think they're going to fall over time. So people, if you put them in your reserve pile, you're pretty sure that they're going to maintain their value. And in fact, they even increase in value in times of financial stress because everybody goes to the dollar.
So reserves are what they sound like. They're reserves, right?
Yes.
The governments hold these currencies in reserve if they need them to. And you're saying they generally don't need them in typical times. They'll build reserves or they'll wind down reserves a little bit depending on what's going on with trade and the balance of payments.
Mm-hmm.
But in times of stress, that can come. That's particularly important because people need businesses, households need cash. They need liquidity, as you said, and the reserves provide that source of liquidity in times of stress.
Yeah. And they also pay for if the country runs a trade deficit over time, you can use your reserves to pay that for that.
Pay that down, right? But you can only do that for so long until you get in trouble, which and there's always this kind of underlying lingering concern that you hear expressed that the dollar is going to lose. The dollar is the reserve currency. 60% of all reserves are in dollars. That it's going to lose its status as the reserve currency. That is the currency that's used in a lot of global transactions, and as you say, is a kind of a safe haven when times are tough. Do you have any sense that is? Do you have any concern about that the dollar could lose its reserve currency?
Not really. Its reserve status is the dollar fulfills several functions, and one is reserve status, another is invoicing currency. That oil is usually priced in dollars rather than some other currency, and then also that it's used in transactions. And as far as the reserve currency, you want something that's going to hold value, and to do that, you need the country that is providing the reserve currency needs to be big. Its markets need to be liquid and varied. But you also need an institutional setting that reassures people. You need to, a rule of law that will uphold contracts. You need a pretty free, a lack of capital controls so that you can sell different currencies and exchange them as you want. And the government's not going to, put down, have new laws that limit your.
Come in and say, look, you can't change the dollar for the euro or the dollar for the Chinese renminbi or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
that's free flow of capital. There's no capital controls. Like the Chinese have capital controls.
And the other thing is since the economy is expanding over time, the USA, since it's the dollar, has to provide more dollars over time, and that means it runs a trade deficit. And so the country has to be willing, if another country is going to displace us, it has to be willing to run a significant trade deficit over many years. And I don't see any country willing to do that. The Chinese lack the institutional setting, the free markets, and just the stability that the U.S. has. And so I don't think it's ever going to seriously challenge the dollar as a reserve currency. One currency that could is if a true euro market arose. Right now you have a euro market, a French euro market, a German euro market, a Greek euro market. But if more euros were backed by all countries, and so they were, interchangeable, that would significantly broaden the pool of assets in their liquidity. And that could boost the euro's percentage as far as reserve currencies.
One thing I did notice, looking at the data is, it's been 60% roughly. It's been 60% for a long time, roughly.
Yeah.
It's up a little bit, down a little bit in any given year, but it has not really changed to any appreciable degree, despite all the hand wringing about this. I guess the question is, if it isn't the dollar, exactly which currency would be the reserve currency? And it's hard to imagine.
The euro maybe could not displace this, but increase its importance. But we've been through this before. There was concern about the yen. There was concern about the mark, the German mark. Then there was concern about the euro when it was created. There was a little bit of concern over SDRs issued by the IMF. And now there's concern over China. And in each case, I think just when you look at it, the advantages of the dollar are so great.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've mentioned SDRs twice. Can you just describe quickly for the listener what an SDR is?
Sure. It's called special drawing rights, and it's made up of a basket of currencies, including the yuan. And the IMF issues it periodically to members of the IMF. They issue certain baskets, and then those members can, if they want to, at some point take them back to the IMF and get paid in the currencies. And so it gives each recipient country, a basket of currencies that they can sell if they need assets kind of quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I had another thought, but it'll come back to me.
I've got plenty of thoughts. I've got plenty of thoughts. So why do we want to be the reserve currency? I mean, what's the deal? I mean, why?
Yeah.
Why
so
such a big deal?
Yeah.
Who cares if euro or yen or even the Chinese yuan became the reserve currency? Why would we have a problem with that?
Because we get, maybe if different people measure it differently, but we get maybe 300 billion in benefits a year from having the reserve currency.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so we get some seniorage because it costs less to make a dollar than to get, than to sell it. So you make a little bit of money there. But
sounds like
more
an NFT
important
to me. Sounds
Yeah.
like an NFT to me. So no, come back to that.
A more important reason is that all this demand for dollar assets reduces the interest rate on dollar borrowing. So when the Federal Reserve goes out to borrow money, or the Treasury goes out to borrow money, it gets a lower rate. But also when you and I go out to borrow, we get a slightly lower rate on the loan we get. Another is we get at our financial industries have a sort of leg up overseas because they're already deeply entrenched in the dollar's benefits. Another is that if we tighten up monetary policy in this country, some of that pain is shared by other countries, because how do we tighten up monetary policy? We raise interest rates. And if you raise interest rates on the dollar, then other countries have to worry about capital flowing out to the US. So they feel a need to raise interest rates too to keep funds from leaving. So so those are some of the main benefits.
Yeah. Hey, Cris and Ryan, did you think Joe missed anything here with regard to in the discussion around the reserve currency, the concern? Are you guys at all worried about the U.S. dollar losing its reserve currency status? Any concerns about that? You're in the same camp with Joe?
Yeah, not my lifetime.
Not anytime soon. But if
Yeah.
it did, I don't know that I would be terribly if the euro did take, yeah, there are benefits that
That's because you're Italian. That's why you're.
we lose. But I don't know that it's such a. I don't see it as a catastrophic event, right?
No.
The British pound was the reserve currency for centuries, and then it wasn't anymore. But UK still goes on, right? So it's not a cataclysmic event.
Yeah.
You agree with
And
that, Joe? Do you think that's right?
Huh?
It's not a
Yeah,
cataclysmic
well,
event.
no, not a catastrophic event, but I think, I think what would seriously hurt the dollar's role is all things that the US would be responsible for. So if we let inflation get wildly out of control, that would, make people think twice about the dollar. If we toy a little bit too much about, defaulting on the dollar and, not paying it, back, I mean, not making payments quite on time, like we sort of do every year when we hit the debt ceiling. If people start to really take that seriously, that could really hurt us. So there, just general mismanagement of our economy could really hurt the dollar over time, not suddenly, but over time. And so, the lesson is, if you're concerned about those things, let's get our house in better shape.
Got it. And the dollar has been the reserve currency now since World War II, really, or maybe even World War I, really.
Yeah, you could argue
World War One,
because Germany came, or not, Germany came out of that with a lot of debt, but so did Great Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, and the British pound was the reserve currency in the 19th century up through World War I.
Yeah.
So 125, 150 years, something like that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Hey, before we move on to crypto, one thing that I've observed that I find fascinating, I guess it's in a kind of a weird, wonky sense, is that the value of the dollar has been very stable against other currencies. There's chaos in the economy, right? Pandemic, geopolitical issues, China, U.S. trade war, all kinds of things, all things going on. But through it all, certainly in recent years, I mean, if you go back to, last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the dollar has been stable. And if you look at the dollar on a broad trade weighted basis, so of course the dollar, you can look at it against all these different currencies. And if you look at it against these currencies appropriately weighted to reflect, our trading relationship with those countries, the broad trade weighted dollar is today roughly where it's been on average. This is on a real basis, on average, since the Bretton Woods Agreement collapsed and we went to floating exchange rates back in the early 1970s. So over the past 50 years, if you go look at the average real broad trade weighted dollar, we're pretty close there. Maybe a little on the high side, right now, but very, very close. And again, relative stability. Is that something that is just me, or is that something you've observed and have thought about? This is to anybody, to Joe, to Ryan, to Cris. Is this kind of entered into your thinking at all?
Yeah, no, certainly.
just me.
So as we, we
Yeah,
talked about
okay.
the gold standard in our inflation episode. So certainly, that to me is evidence of why are we even contemplating a change here, right? Things are working out relatively well. Obviously, there are things can improve, but why would we reject this the current environment here and go back to a gold standard that we know has a track record of volatility, right? Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. It's so normal that I think we take it for granted.
Any other comments around that, Joe? I mean, is that got on your radar screen, that observation I just made about the stability of the currency markets? I mean, historically, you can see big swings in currencies, right? We've seen that in the past, but we just have not seen that in recent years, despite all the volatility that's going on. That's something that's gotten on your radar screen.
Yeah, and I haven't thought a lot about it, but to me, it's just another sign that these markets are deep and liquid, and the advantages that the dollar has are so systematic that it's going to take a long time for anything to replace the dollar. And right now, no asset has the traits that would be necessary. to do that.
Right, right. And of course, this is a nice segue, although I'm not sure I want to make the segue exactly at this moment because there's one other thing I want to talk about. But this makes a nice segue into crypto, right? One of the issues with crypto, obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, and there's a gazillion other ones at this point, is their value fluctuates widely against everything and anything else, right? Particularly we compare it against the dollar. We tend to compare everything against the dollar. But if you compare it against the dollar, it's like up and down and all around. But before we go to crypto, and I know I've teased this a couple times, I promise we're going to get to crypto. Why, one of the criteria for being a reserve currency is size and, heft in global trade. And obviously, talking about size, you think China, and, in terms of trade, I think the Chinese trade more than the U.S. now. So you add up imports and exports from China to the rest of the world, it's in sheer numbers, in dollars, it's bigger than I think the U.S. at this point. And, obviously that's going to continue to be the case, I believe. So that obviously isn't the only criteria for choosing a reserve currency, but, why don't you think the Chinese could displace the dollar as the reserve currency? Ryan said, not in my lifetime. Well, why do you think that? What is it about the Chinese system that precludes it from, taking on the reserve currency status? Anyone want to take a crack at that question?
Yeah. So if you're a government, European government, say, and you're building up reserves and you want them, you want them to be there and retain their value in times of crisis. So you can have the dollar, which is, got a long history, deep markets, rule of law, pretty stable government policy. Or you could have the Chinese one, which is, increasingly controlled by a hostile dictatorship that, the Communist Party reserves the right to renegotiate international agreements at any time, has strict capital control, so you can't easily change, a couple $1 billion worth of yuan into something else all of a sudden. And, it is not, it looks out for itself and doesn't really care about what impact its policies, national policies, have on other countries. It seems faced with that choice, countries are going to choose dollars.
Got it.
And I don't think, that characterization of the Chinese government is going to change anytime soon.
So to summarize, it boils down to property rights, most fundamentally. I mean, because the Chinese government can change the rules on who owns what with just a statement, really. And I guess capital controls are, part and parcel of that same. It's a tangential. It's in the same vein as property rights, but kind of a different kind of problem for the yuan to become a reserve currency. You just have the capital controls. People can't take their money in and out of China easily. That's a problem. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay. So let's turn to the other currency that people seem to be thinking might ultimately displace the dollar, or so-called fiat currencies. Fiat meaning they're backed by the full faith and credit of government. So you have, trust in the government is going to support the value of that currency and not debase it, not do things that are going to result in, high rates of inflation or deflation. You're going to maintain the stability of that currency, and that's crypto. So crypto, people think in this, fiat currency is, in some sense private, but it's also public, right? Ultimately, it works because it has the backing of a government and institutions that people trust. And crypto is purely private. At this point, there's no government support to it. So very different kind of way of operating. So I guess, Joe, I'd like to know, before we dive in here into this conversation, are you, and I know what Ryan and Cris are, but Cris is, I would call a crypto crazy. He believes in crypto. and Ryan is a crypto denier. He thinks it's going, it's going
Going
down
to zero.
I obviously I'm mischaracterizing their perspectives. I think they both, and I'll let them speak for themselves on this. But are you a crypto crazy? Do you think this is the future, or are you a crypto denier? Just so we level set here in the beginning.
Yeah. So I guess I'm midway there. I mean, I think the movement and especially Bitcoin have come up with some valuable innovations like the blockchain, um, the fact that you don't need a central money market or money maker. You can deal, people can deal directly. You can exchange funds with anybody without somebody intermediating. I think also the ability to do transactions relatively cheaply, especially international transactions, is really important. And I think those innovations would be integrated into the formal market in some way, and probably not just in the financial markets, but other markets will find a way to use things like the blockchain. But I don't see why, as like on domestic markets where increasingly transactions are electronic anyway. You give your debit card or your credit card. And transactions between banks are totally electronic. So what does something like Bitcoin offer in that? And also the transfers domestically are pretty cheap and rapid. Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies could put pressure on them a little bit, but I don't see what there is.
What's the value?
Yeah.
What does it offer that the
Yeah.
US dollar or the euro or
And-
the yen doesn't provide?
Yeah, and the crypto market really is still Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's, I think, way too volatile to ever be, in the foreseeable future, widely used for making transactions. Maybe as a store of value, if people might be correct in thinking that it's going to continue to go up over time, and maybe lose some of these wild swings, but as a medium of transaction, is a medium of pricing products. I don't see it being Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, I think
Maybe stable
there's a lot to
coins.
unpack there. One thing I think is important for people to recognize is we need to distinguish the blockchain from the cryptocurrency, right? The
Yeah.
blockchain is a technology that the cryptocurrency utilizes, but the blockchain, is a technology that has many potential use cases, although at this point there isn't a whole lot of them. But it allows for a transparent accounting of transactions between entities, people, businesses, that kind of thing. So it's a technology that Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies use, but these are independent things. It does add the value that it is transparent, and you can make sure that the transactions are proper and in order. So that does add value to Bitcoin and Ethereum, but these are independent kind of things. In terms of the point about medium of exchange and store of value, my sense is that those are the two key sources of value of any currency, right? You use it as a medium of exchange. I get $1 and I can spend it for a tube of toothpaste, and I can exchange it, and I feel confident that the $1 I have in my pocket today is going to buy the same roughly tube of toothpaste a week from now and a month from now. And the other is it's a store of value, so I can just put that $1 away and get it 3 years from now when I'm in retirement, and it's still it's going to lose a little bit of value because we'll have some inflation, but I can still use it. And if I take that $1 and I invest in some asset that's producing some kind of interest rate, I can build my wealth, and I have more money when I retire. All of that, both of those values, the medium of exchange and store value, depends on stability, right? On the stability of the currency, on that thing is not going to move in value in a big way. And that obviously is not the case for crypto, right? I mean, that goes up and down and all around.
Yeah, it's not the case for Bitcoin. It could be the case for some crypto. There's this talk of stable coins where you back, just like in a bank, you issue coins or money, and then you back all that money with liquid assets. And so whenever somebody comes to you and they want to redeem a bunch of the coins, you give them dollars back. And so those stable coins are designed to hold their value relative to whatever there is backing them, whether it's the dollar or a mix of currencies.
Okay, just to take a step back. So we've got Bitcoin, Ethereum. We're using those as the poster childs for a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, okay, yes, everyone now understands that the volatility of the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum makes it less valuable or useful as a store of value or medium of exchange. Maybe it's useful as a medium of speculation, but you can't use it as a currency. So how do I solve that problem? And the way that the market has tried to solve the problem was these so-called stable coins. So what would be an example of a good Tether would be an example of a stable coin. And stable coins say, okay, I'm going to, you give me $1, I'll give you I'll give you the stable coin, and I'll make sure if you give me that stable coin back, you're going to get you're going to get the dollar back, right?
Yeah.
And the dollar you give me, I'm going to invest in whatever I'm going to invest in. And you're saying that solves that problem, or at least addresses that problem of volatility, and makes it more likely to be a medium of exchange.
It does, as long as the stable coins can be redeemed at any time. And so the worry is like the money markets.
Exactly.
They work great, and everybody says, "Oh, we don't need federal backing of money markets." Everybody understands the risks, and then you go into an almost depression, and a couple of the money markets break the dollar, and the Fed feels compelled, and the federal government feels compelled to come in and back everybody up. Because
so Cris, you were just commenting there. So can you want to explain that risk in a little bit more detail? What's the concern about stablecoin at this point in time?
It goes right to your point about it being backed $1 for $1, right? That promise that a depositor makes in exchanging a dollar bill for a Tether or US dollar, whatever stablecoin, that promise is ironclad, right? If the next day the fund Tether is investing those funds in whatever instruments, and there is a crisis, they may not be able to redeem those coins back for $1. So that's the issue I see. I still fail to see what the true value to the consumer. How is this any different to me than entries in my bank account, electronic entries in my bank account? What is the advantage of paying for something with this coin versus just a debit card or a transfer?
Yeah. So
that's the value.
Question. Why would you do that? I mean, why?
I think there are two reasons. One is on international transactions, there are high transaction costs, and so the other one is secrecy. These stable coins or the crypto coins, they don't offer complete privacy or security, but they are pretty secure and anonymous. And so if that's what you want, either for legal or illegal purposes, that it would be an asset or is an asset. Right. It's also a main regulatory concern.
Right. So two fundamental sources of value. If you solve the question of the volatility of the value of it, which is stablecoin, you get two sources of value. One is that it's a better medium of exchange in international transactions. Because right now, let's say I'm a immigrant worker in the Central Valley of California. I get my paycheck and I want to get it back to my family, let's say in El Salvador. Previously I had to go down to the Western Union with my cash. They would turn it into a wire it down to El Salvador. My relative would have to go to the Western Union down there and collect the cash. And of course, Western Union, could be a 2-day, 3-day process. Western Union, collects its VIG. It takes a fee. And there's reports of people getting robbed as they come out of the Western Union in El Salvador because people know they're going there for getting cash, right? So that's a problem. So here, this could solve that problem to get that money down. And that's why, one of the reasons why El Salvador said, okay, we're going to take Bitcoin as legal tender. Dollars, welcome. We've been dollarized in El Salvador, but we'll take Bitcoins as well. So does that. And the other value is, as you say, secret. I can move the money around and, it's hard to track.
Yeah. And actually one other is that if for people who people who don't have bank accounts, it can provide several valuable services, especially, yeah. Here, that population is relatively small in other developing countries, especially when in the rural areas, very few people might have bank accounts. And so this gives them a place to everybody's got a phone. So they can buy stuff, they can put stuff in a savings account.
Yeah.
These are once.
Go ahead, Chris. Yeah,
I was going to say this.
I was ready. I could see you wanted to say something. Go
Okay.
ahead.
This is one.
This
is one solution.
Crypto.
But we have other solutions out there too, right? I make international transactions as well. I have family in Europe. Obviously, it's not a developing country, but yeah, I've seen the prices of those transactions falling over time. You can very easily PayPal someone today. So I think the technologies are interesting and we will learn from them. And I see this as just an extension of broader fintech trends, right? So we had that fintech boom a few years ago, perhaps is still ongoing in terms of lending. And now the banks have largely adopted many of those technologies. So I think it's great that we're experimenting it, but I don't see the long-term viability. I think there are other advantages that we've just described or ascribed to the dollar that I think are going to overwhelm the any advantage that Bitcoin could provide.
I guess the other issue is regulation, right? I mean, the banking system is highly regulated, which adds to the confidence that money good. If I put my money in the bank and move it in the banking system, that money's there. No one's going to. I'm not going to lose it. I'm going to get dollar for dollar. And also money market mutual funds now post financial crisis, right? I mean, because before the financial crisis, money market mutual funds could so-called break the buck. One of them did, and that was one of the proximate causes for the cratering of the financial system, because people thought, oh my gosh, this was money good, but it really isn't. I'm going to lose money, and there was a run on money market mutual funds. And so the stablecoin is very much, as Joe, you said, the analog to a money market mutual fund, but it's not at this point not regulated, right, Joe? I mean,
no,
you can't be assured you're going to get your money back. They say you're going to get your money back, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean they're kind of regulated, and then if you sell these things under a promise, the federal government will hold you to that promise, and so a couple of stable coins have gotten fined because the assets they had in reserve weren't the assets that they were telling everybody they were getting. But there's an indirect form of regulation. I think most people think, well, you got to regulate them somewhere as banks because the government's going to have to guarantee them at some point. So
because why would we want the bank? We established the regulations in the banking system to protect against this problem of runs on the system. which are devastating in times of crisis, right? I mean, what happened in the 1930s? It was a bank run. What happened around the financial crisis? That was a run on money market mutual funds on the financial system. So we know that those are pretty bad things. We don't want that to happen. So why would we let this other system that's setting up that has the same risk not be regulated in the same way? That doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
getting back to It's a Wonderful Life.
There you go.
I like
It's
it.
all there.
Full circle.
Circle life, yes.
It's all there.
Yeah. So I guess Chris's point is, well, once that happens, and logic would dictate that that's going to happen, right? That we're going to. I mean, obviously, this is a big debate in Washington right now, and it's in the legislative process. But feels like at the end of the day, there's going to be more regulation here. So once that happens, the cost of operating stablecoin rises to be, more consistent. And as Cris points out, transferring money and doing all those things that stablecoin can do in the regular banking system better. Why stablecoin? Why would you have it? What's the comparative advantage? Why is it going to live, to see another day? I guess the answer is we don't know. Maybe the technology can change in a way that makes it more valuable, but it's hard to see that at the current point in time.
But don't you think if there's a run, there was a run on money market mutual funds, the Fed stepped in. Do you think the Fed's going to step into crypto markets if there's a liquidity issue? I don't think so.
Why?
Not right now.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Why?
If they get big.
They have to get much bigger. I mean, they have to pose a contagion effect on the financial system. And I don't think that would, if Bitcoin went to zero tomorrow, I don't think the financial system's going to collapse.
Anyone know how much is in stablecoin? What do you know? What it like? I don't know. Is it assets under management? I guess. What do we know?
Yeah.
I know the value total crypto right now is about it's well over $2 trillion.
It got up to 3.
It sounds
yeah.
like a lot.
Yeah.
It was 3. Well, it's come back now, right? Because it's like down 20%.
It depends on the day, I guess.
In November, I think it was 3 trillion.
Was
I think it's relatively minor, but it's been growing rapidly the last couple of years, 2 years maybe.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with Cris. I don't, I think these companies, the more successful ones, are going to push the envelope on technology and services, and hopefully that will get adapted by the incumbents. But in the end, I think the advantages of fiat currency are so great that it's hard for me to see one of these, emerging. And I think the competition is going to whittle it down to, I don't know, 2 or 3 who fight to be the stable coin. But even then, I think, if you really want a stable coin that's backed 100% by dollars, why not just have dollars?
Yeah.
Why do you need this middleman?
Exactly. Yeah.
You need a bank because you want the bank's going to earn money by lending it at a higher rate to somebody else, and it's going to, it is going to, successfully transfer a short-term liability into a long-term asset. But whether cryptocurrency is going to do that's of equal worth.
Well, here's the other issue. I mean, we've been talking about the relative merits, but one of the demerits, I think, of the crypto market is it's definitely a vehicle for raw speculation, right? I mean, speculation in the sense that I'm just buying this thing because I think I can sell it to the other fool faster before it falls in value, right? I mean, and that again, who cares if it's private parties, not a big deal, can't hurt a lot of people if prices go down when it does eventually go, because it will go down. But if it's big and we're $2-3 trillion and rising rapidly, that's a whole different ballgame, and it's sucking lots of people in. I mean, Cris, didn't you tell me, or was it Ryan? You saw a Bitcoin ATM?
Yeah, it's at my local gas station.
Local gas station.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So.
And there was someone using it. I'm curious how it works. So next time I go in, I'm going to read the instructions.
What were they doing? Putting their American Express card in and saying, "Give me."
I have no idea.
1/100th of a Bitcoin, which is how much? That's still a lot of money. That's
Yeah.
$2,700.
Still a
No, $470. That would be,
Mhm.
something like that. Yeah. Right? I mean, am I wrong about that? I mean, what do you think?
Well, speculation and nefarious if you are
Okay.
using it
That
for
goes back to
transactions,
secrecy, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Most of those
Yeah.
transactions are not to buy gas, right?
Right. Yeah. Joe, so I mean, if I know you're very, I don't think skeptical is the right word, but you're very judicious when you think about, you want to use regulation judiciously. You don't want to
Mhm.
over-regulate. You don't want to squelch, private activity and innovation. But with that hat on, with that as a prism, and tell me if I got that wrong, but
No,
that as a
it's
prism,
true.
how do you think about regulation of the crypto market?
Well, I think we need regulations of stable coins.
We need that, you're saying?
We need that.
Okay.
At a minimum, we need regulations against fraud. If they become any appreciable size, we need regulations because the Federal Reserve is going to have to worry about backing them in a crisis. Right now, our regulatory approach seems to be that we have 5 or 6 existing financial regulators, and they're all sort of jockeying for position and trying to decide what aspect of cryptocurrency is in their existing jurisdiction and how they should use these existing powers to regulate the economy. I think it would be much better if we step back and we had a broader discussion about how to regulate cryptocurrencies and maybe wrote new rules that applied just to them and assets like them, and put them all in one regulator rather than having, a couple of regulators battle over jurisdiction, and also preempted state rules so that, if you didn't have to worry about complying with 20 different states that all had their own different rules.
You're not against regulation. You're just saying if we're going to regulate, let's just do it right. But,
Yeah, and I think these, it might be that, 10 years from now, people look back and see China made a big mistake when it banned all these cryptocurrencies, and that, maybe we, benefited a lot because we let them continue, and we got a lot of innovation out of it.
Yeah, and that brings up the last thing I'd like to chat about with you, and that is central bank digital currency. And as you point out, the Chinese, did they actually ban all crypto? You're not allowed to? I didn't know.
Believe they did.
Did they? And they now have, they haven't adopted, but they are, I think they have a proof of concept, let's call it, for a central bank digital currency. Do you want to describe what they're up to and, what CBD is actually all about? Because it's a digital currency, so it's in the same crypto. It's not blockchain based, is it? I don't think it is. No.
No,
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, right.
So, and I've been meaning to plug another book. Eshwar Prahlad's book on the future of money is just absolutely great on this. And he goes up till about June of this year. So it's got a lot of recent events in, and just a wonderful explanation of all these issues.
On our book list, we got a book.
Yeah, and
put yours on there, and I think you had yours on there.
I have. I don't know how many people have.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not.
Just start a book club.
Yeah. So yeah, and I kind of agree with him that sort of CBDCs are pretty inevitable. These are the central bank now issues dollars. And so instead of issuing dollars, it would give everybody an electronic account. If you have you could have a system where just only banks have digital accounts with the Federal Reserve, but that's the system we already have. It's just they're in dollars, not in some other electronic something. But if you had what they call a retail system where a lot of individuals and businesses had their own account, in these digital dollars, the Fed would issue them. And there's some advantages. There's one that the Fed contains control of the money supply, and all these things are backed in the same way that a dollar bill or a quarter is backed. It could make it easier for the Federal Reserve to conduct monetary policy if it had to inject money into the economy quickly. It could just put money in these accounts overnight, where it could, aim at certain businesses or certain types of individuals and give them more money. It would probably displace any other digital coins. I think, why would you need another coin if you have these? So it has real advantages. It'd be tougher to conduct illicit business with a
Of course,
digital
doesn't it-
coin.
Isn't one of the downside? Oh, Chris, go ahead. I've got a couple downsides, but I'm sure you're going there too. So
No, go ahead. Well, go ahead. I'll start. You
Yeah.
continue. I mean, the disadvantage, right? Advantage, perhaps, that sure, greater control, but disadvantage certainly to commercial banks, right? As you mentioned, we already have a commercial bank digital currency. Most currencies actually created by the banking system, right? So, right, isn't that that seems to me as a significant downside? You're putting all the eggs in the basket of the Fed.
It is, but you could put these accounts in banks and just allow the Fed to reach into the bank and add money to the account, or you could have you could have a maximum size on the account, so that most of your money still is in the banking sector. The banks still get the vast majority of deposits and use those to lend out. But I agree, it's a serious issue, and you don't want the Fed to be deciding who should get credit. You want the private sector to do that.
Right.
And go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, shouldn't we be worried though about central government control? I mean, my sense is that's one reason why the Chinese want this, because they now have complete control over everything in the payment system. And holy cow, that's a lot of control and power. It just feels, I don't know, big brotherish to me. I'd be very, I don't know, is that just misplaced concern?
Yeah, but I think it's a general problem with technology. We have these security cameras all around and other things. On the one hand, you want government to be able to stop fraud and stop crime, and on the other hand, you want to protect individuals. And I've always thought that we need some sort of system where if the feds or any the state wants access to certain data, it has to show a court that, well, there was a crime committed here, between this hour and that hour. And so I want to look at all the security cameras in that area. And then that, the court oversees that examination to make sure that the government doesn't tamper with the records or go beyond its, what's been allowed. And so that the controls of access by the state is, very restricted to legitimate means. And you could do that. You could set up that sort of a system with a CBDC.
Yeah. Well, okay. How do you handicap this, Joe? I mean, in the U.S., let's say 10 years from now, what are the odds that we're going to be moving in the direction of a central bank digital currency?
I think about 100%. I think it makes sense to do it slowly, to get Congress on board, to have it so everybody, including most of the public, understand what's being done and how it's going to work and why we're doing it. I don't think we have to race China to set one up, but I think we would do it.
Wow, 100%. That's
okay. 98.
That's conviction.
Do you have any forecast other than the sun is going to continue to rise every morning? 100%.
Yeah,
that's pretty
100%.
confident. Yeah. Okay. Did you hear that, Ryan?
I heard it. Yeah.
What do Do you have a different set of odds, or do you need to think about it more deeply before you answer?
I'll take the under.
Yeah, I'll take the under too. Yeah.
Good move. Good move. Ryan, I'm sure Ryan's the same way.
That was my mistake right there.
Well, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, it's going to take a lot longer to happen than people think. And then all of a sudden it's going to happen very quickly, you know? So I don't know about 10 years from now, but it could be a couple, sorry about my dogs. You know, it is what it is. But it's going to, you know, maybe a generation from now and then all of a sudden, but I suspect it's going to take more than 10 years for us to move down this path. That's a big change. It feels like to me.
Yeah.
Big change. Yeah. Anyway, we covered a boatload of ground, as they would say, and I do want to make a couple advertisements. At Mark's Andy.
There we go. There it is. Never
I'm
fails.
on Twitter. So my handle is at Mark's Andy. Ryan, last week you told me you were going to tell us what your new Twitter handle is.
Oh, I forgot to check.
Oh, you forgot.
I'll have it for you next week.
You're playing nonchalant. And Joe, are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter. I think my handle is at JV_Kennedy.
So it doesn't sound like you use it very often. Not too often.
I get on and these people are following me. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of creepy thing.
Hey, I'm just saying, Joe, at Mark's Andy. I mean, you know, you can follow me. Chris, you're not on Twitter, right?
I am following you.
Oh, you are?
look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, this week
Okay.
I logged
I
in.
did do that. Okay, fantastic. Very good. Okay, well, anything else anybody wants to bring up? I mean, I know it's getting close to Christmas, so I'm sure people are want to get on to other things other than listening to the podcast and central bank digital currency and Bitcoin and SDRs and reserve currency. I know there's a lot to cover, but very, very important. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it.
I always enjoy it.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thanks.
Happy
You guys
holidays.
too.
Thanks, guys.